The items I used to make this chandelier, here's an old foam bucky head I had laying around. Now this is solid foam, and I think it being solid will support the chandelier better than picking up a hollow one. I picked up these little LED candles from a pack of Tans. They were on sale for $1. You can't go wrong with that. I have here 90-degree curved gray conduit. It's gray, so it comes from electrical. Here's a cross piece for conduit. It's white, so this one was picked up in plumbing. This is a 1/2 inch conduit, and the inner diameter here is 1/2 inch. Here's an end cap picked up. It's important to make sure that this is 2 inches or larger. For my candles, I have these pieces of PVC pipe that came from these outdoor lights. You can pick up the old accent LED lights. This was LED. I used the headpiece for a different project, so I had these left over. But using any 2-inch conduit will work just fine. Some pipe insulation, 2-inch outer diameter. Some chain, your choice. I haven't decided yet, so I still got the gray and the black sitting here. Other items you need: glue gun, soldering iron, 2 different color wires so we can wire this up. So I'm going to make the candle portion of the chandelier, and here's my PVC tubing. You probably have a larger piece. Just go ahead and choose the size you want your candles to be, and go ahead and take a saw and cut it off. I've already cut some, and I have the piece right here. Now, I didn't like it being all flat at the top, so what I did with mine is I just took my X-Acto knife and I just trimmed little notches into the top of the candle so that it wasn't perfectly flat. It's up to you if you wish to do that. Next, take your foam insulation and go ahead and cut about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch piece. You don't have to be perfect with your cuts because nobody's going to see this. This is actually using it as a support for the LED light. And there we go. Now what you're going to do with this piece of foam is you're going to fit it inside your PVC tube and just push it in a little bit. Now if it doesn't want to fit very well, you can go ahead and cut the foam on the seam, trim a little bit, and go ahead and push it in there. It's mostly trial and error. Here's my LED candle assembled. I picked up a pack of Tans for $1. Go ahead and make sure that you remove the bulb, and make sure you put it in a safe place because it is still glass even though there's LED in there. I was able to pull the bottom portion of this off pretty easy, and what we're left is the actual candle piece. Now what you're going to do is take a saw and cut about 1 inch of the top of the candle off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So here's my candle. I went ahead and I cut it, and I carefully pulled it apart where the metal contact was. I went and cleaned some of the flashing off the edge so that it wasn't getting in the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount this into our foam piece. Now what I discovered was that the candle itself was smaller than the inner diameter of our foam. But that's okay because I'll just go ahead and fill this in with the glue gun. Alright, go ahead and just kind of hold it into place. And then take your glue gun and initially just give it enough so that it's touching on 3 of the sides. Okay, I went ahead and I took my glue gun and I filled in all around the candle. I'm going to take my light bulb and I'm going to go ahead and screw it back into the top of the candle here. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to slide it back into my PVC tubing. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to use this to decide how tall I want the light to be inside the candle itself, and I think that's just pretty good right there. Now once you do that, carefully unscrew the light bulb, put it aside, and then take your glue gun and mount the foam inside the candle itself. Oh, sorry, inside the PVC tubing, like so. Now that my glue is cooled off on the inside, what I'm going to do is cover the top of the foam with a little layer of glue. I don't want it to look perfectly smooth. And then once you get your layer on the inside, on top of the foam, go ahead and swirl some glue on the inside of the actual exposed PVC here. And then, once you get that done, go ahead and take your tip and put glue following along the contour that you put into your candle. What we're doing is we're going to give it that kind of melted look. And you'll see that once you start painting this. Okay. And then just to add to it, you can take your glue gun and let's take it and start adding drips down the side. Totally up to you how you want them to look. Okay, I've got my light bulb in my vise. I used the plastic that the light bulb came with to kind of secure it in place. Please make sure that you don't squeeze this too hard because you will bust the light. Now what we're going to do first is we're going to pre-tin the light bulb. Now the tip of the light bulb is the positive, and this outside portion where you see the screw section is your negative. So what we want to do is just add a little bit of solder to the tip, and we want to give it a second to heat up for the negative, and add a little bit of solder there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our wires and solder them on. Take your positive, solder it to the positive point, and then take your negative and solder it to the negative. Now you want to make sure that the wire doesn't stick out on the outside of the bottom, because then when we try to screw it in, it won't screw in right. Alright, I've got my wires securely soldered onto my light. I did strip the other end and test the light. These use 3 volts. So if you have a power supply or 2 batteries, go ahead and test it before you get to this point, because once you put it on here, that's it. Next, what we're going to do is we're just going to stick the wires through, pull it through, and go ahead and screw it in. Now if you did have the wires sticking out on the bottom when you soldered it too far, you could try resoldering it, or you can go ahead and take a knife and kind of trim the inside and then see if you can work it in place, because the idea is that you're not going to be pulling these light bulbs out. These are permanently in here. We're going to work on the neck of the chandelier candles. You're going to use your gray conduit, and then you're going to have this end cap. Now we got to prep this end cap. First thing is that there's raised letters, so you can take a file or some sandpaper and sand it down. The other thing you want to look at is whether you want to keep the threads or not. On my prototype, what I did is I took my glue gun and then I filled in all these threads. It looked okay, but I think for the other 3 I'm just going to go ahead and leave this here. Okay, I've gone ahead and sanded the edges down. Got rid of all the markings and the little flashing that was on the side. So now what we need to do is put a 1/2 inch hole here to fit the conduit through. So I'm just going to take my center tap and go ahead and center it. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my drill and start drilling out the hole. Now here's the end cap. I went ahead and I got the hole drilled out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 1/2 inch conduit and fit it through here. Now this piece here, the larger piece, is going to be towards the candle, so it fits in like so. Now this is going to be tight at first. Just wiggle it through until it reaches around the bend, and there we go. Now when you got the piece like you want it, go ahead and take your glue gun and glue it into place. You really don't need a lot of glue if your hole that you drilled was tight, but just enough so it doesn't come undone. Okay. Now once you got that, you're able to take the 2 pieces together. Go ahead and take your wires, fit it through the conduit, and place the candle in the holder. Once you're satisfied with how you want it to sit, go ahead and drop some glue in there to hold it in place. And then let it cool. After it cools, you'll go ahead and primer it. Just remember to make sure you cover up the light bulb with some tape. And then make sure you primer and give it any other details you might want to add to it. My prototype, I actually had it dripping off the side here. While the candle pieces are drying, I'm going to go ahead and drill a hole in my cross piece. When all the wires come through, I gotta have a way of soldering them all together. Now I'm going to take my foam head and go ahead and, using a saw, cut the top of the head off so I can take the pieces of the chandelier and mount it inside.